Hello and welcome to Inside the Americas on France 24. I'm Delano D'Souza. Coming up on the show this week, permit-free gun-carrying legislation signed into law in the U.S. state of Texas. The measure will be going into effect from September. Nassib makes history by becoming the first active player in the NFL's history to come out as gay. And Cuba says one of its homegrown coronavirus vaccines is up to 92% effective in preventing COVID-19. Now, first, in the U.S. state of Texas, residents over the age of 21 will soon be able to carry handguns in public without a permit. The governor has signed the bill into law, which also eliminates mandatory firearms training. The new legislation is set to go into effect in September. Texas has joined a handful of conservative-led states that have passed measures this year allowing some form of permitless carry. Emerald Maxwell reports.
It's the latest state to become what its governor called a Second Amendment sanctuary. From September 1st, Texans will be allowed to carry firearms in public without a permit.
People are saying from the federal level to the local level that Second Amendment rights are under assault, that government officials are saying, heck yes, government is coming to take your guns. Texas will not let that happen.
Proponents of the law call such a measure constitutional carry because, they argue, the Constitution allows citizens to bear arms and therefore there should be fewer barriers to being able to carry such weapons. The measure is backed by the NRA, one of the country's most powerful lobby groups.
Freedoms Americans really agree on overwhelmingly are their constitutional right to own a firearm and their right to defend themselves and their families. And in this increasingly dangerous world, people want to be able to protect themselves, and thank God Texas is leading the way for the country.
Not all Texans agree, though.
We're supposed to be trying to have a safe society, not a society where everybody just can walk around and act like it's the Wild Wild West.
It's an incredibly dangerous and irresponsible idea, led by probably people funded by the NRA.
2 years after one of the worst mass shootings in Texas history killed 23 people at a Walmart in El Paso, the state will become the 21st which doesn't require permits for the open or concealed carry of firearms. The right to bear arms in the United States is protected by the Second Amendment to the Constitution, and many lawmakers still interpret it to mean that they shouldn't regulate guns at all. Nationally, 53% of Americans favor stricter gun laws, but this varies by state and political affiliation. California, Connecticut, and New York have some of the strictest laws, such as requiring people to pass a background check and undergo training before purchasing a firearm. These states also figure among those with the lowest gun death rates. At the other end of the scale, with the laxest laws, like permitless carry, are Idaho, Wyoming, and Mississippi, all of which have some of the highest firearm death rates. Gun violence killed more than 38,700 people in the United States in 2019, far higher than any other developed nation.
Now here's a look at some of the political stories making headlines in the United States this week.
In New York City, Eric Adams has taken a first step towards the mayor's office. The former police officer is leading the Democratic primary, ahead of progressive candidate Maya Wiley, in a predominantly Democratic city.
The race is not over, but the movement is here. New Yorkers said that there's more we know Eric, the more we like Eric.
Concern over a rise in shootings during the pandemic has dominated the mayoral campaign in recent months. Adam may have benefited from his unique position as a former police officer who spent his career fighting racism from the inside. In a blow to Democrats' attempts to overhaul US voting law, GOP senators have blocked debate of a bill that would counter a wave of state-level Republican laws creating barriers for voters. Republicans argued that the bill infringed on states' rights to set their own electoral policy, but Democrats have vowed to fight on.
It is not a Republican concern or a Democratic concern. It is an American concern. This is about the American people's right to vote, unfettered. It is about their access to the right to vote in a meaningful way.
Republican state legislators justify their new voting laws as a way of enhancing election security, citing former President Donald Trump's false claims that his November election defeat was the result of widespread fraud. Democrats say the laws aim to depress turnout by young voters and people of color. The Supreme Court has opened the way to the payment of university athletes. The 9 justices sided unanimously with student athletes against the National Collegiate Athletic Association in a narrow case focused on whether they can receive limited cash or non-cash benefits. The NCAA currently forbids any compensation for college athletes, despite the huge profits they generate. The court ruled that the NCAA could not prove that athletes keeping their amateur status was important to business. Driven by huge media contracts, American college sports beats most of the world's professional leagues in terms of revenue.
NFL player Nassib took to Instagram to come out as gay this week. The move is being called a watershed moment for America's most popular sport. Nassib's announcement comes as he enters his 6th season in the league and during Pride Month. Claire Rush reports.
Making history in his sport, NFL player Nassib took to Instagram for his coming out.
What's up, people? I'm Nassib. I'm at my house here in Westchester, Pennsylvania. Just want to take a quick moment to say that I'm gay. I've been meaning to do this for a while now, but I finally feel comfortable enough to get it off my chest. I actually hope that one day videos like this and the whole coming out process are just not necessary. But until then, I'm going to do my best and do my part to cultivate a culture that's accepting, that's compassionate.
Entering his 6th season in the NFL, Nassib added that he plans to donate $100,000 to the Trevor Project, a nonprofit working to prevent suicide among LGBTQ youth. The Las Vegas Raiders defensive end has received support from his team and from NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell.
The NFL family is proud of Carl for courageously sharing his truth today. Representation matters. We share his hope that someday soon statements like his will no longer be newsworthy as we march towards full equality for the LGBTQ+ community.
Nassib is the first player on an active roster to come out as gay in the NFL. Several other players have done so, but only after leaving the league. Among them is Wade Davis. He was one of the first to congratulate Nassib. Coming during Pride Month, Nassib's coming out has also been praised by rights groups, with many saying his move may help increase the visibility of LGBTQ athletes.
The third wave of COVID-19 is hitting Colombia particularly hard. The country has reached a new grim milestone in the pandemic so far and has registered over 100,000 deaths. Colombia has also been hit by protests against economic inequality. According to doctors, more young people are now getting infected and dying. Cuba says its 3-shot Abdala vaccine is up to 92% effective in preventing COVID-19. The announcement came just days after the government said another homegrown vaccine had proved 62% effective with just 2 of its 3 doses. Cuba has shunned vaccine imports during the pandemic, striving instead to develop its own vaccination.
It's been named Abdala, Cuba's homegrown COVID-19 vaccine, the source of great national pride, as Cuba joins the ranks of a handful of powerful countries to have developed their own serum. Its producer says the 3-shot vaccine has proved 92% effective in phase 3 trials.
Apenas 10 meses después de iniciados los proyectos en los laboratorios del CGB y el Instituto Finlay de Vacunas, se alcanzan los datos de eficacia, como bien decías, en un escenario epidemiológico complejo.
Over the weekend, another Cuban lab announced that its jab, called Soberana 2, was 62% effective, using 2 out of 3 doses. In the coming weeks, both vaccines are expected to receive the green light from Cuban authorities, even though the country has already kick-started its inoculation campaign, fearing the spread of variants.
Everyone's getting vaccinated. That's why fewer people are catching the virus here in Havana.
The country is aiming to vaccinate at least 70% of its population before the end of the summer. The Cuban president hailing the news as both a scientific and political victory. Under a U.S. embargo since 1962, Cuba has developed a robust biotech and pharmaceutical industry, boasting a long history of vaccine production.
Now, a new study published by the Natural History Museum in London says that Colombia is home to the largest collection of butterflies. Scientists have catalogued over 3,600 species and nearly 2,000 subspecies in the country. But while Colombia has the largest variety of butterfly, 2.8 million hectares of forest were lost between 2000 and 2019. That's it for this edition of Inside the Americas. From all of us on the team, thank you very much for watching.
Residents from France's disadvantaged suburbs tell their own stories and take the viewers beyond the usual clichés about the French banlieue.
Moi, j'avais envie de dire, mais allez-y, pétez-les les cases. Moi, je viens de là, donc je m'arrête là. Moi, j'ai fait ci, donc je suis condamné à ça. Non!
Moi, ce que je vois, c'est des jeunes hommes et des jeunes femmes qui sont fiers de leur origine, fiers de leurs parents et sont fiers d'être français.
Watch their daily reality in the Banlieue Project on France 24 and France24.com.